And we're live.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the second installment of our Improving Live series. I'm Chris Gregory.
And I am Danny Searing. And thank you to everybody in the FloodGate family for joining today. Hopefully you saw our first edition about a month ago, I think it was, time flies, of Improving Live. And hey, our mission here at FloodGate is improving lives. And a lot of people think that's just in the capacity of, placing candidates at companies, but we've been around over 22 years now. And we've got a lot of sort of tips to add to your arsenal in your job search. And so we're coming to you once a month here. Chris has been gracious enough to have me join him here for the first couple editions. Really here helping, again, add to that arsenal in your job search. So last month, hopefully you caught it. If you didn't catch it, check it out on the FloodGate page. We talked about the first step in the job search, which is building your brand as a candidate, right? And how to start there. Today, we're going to talk about something that might feel even a little bit closer to home to anybody that's ever searched for a job ever, or anybody that's kicking off their search now, especially in today's market of the unfortunate layoffs, the economy, things like that. How to most effectively pursue posted jobs. And a hint, I won't give it away because we're obviously going to be talking about it here, Chris, but it might not be what you think. It's not to hit that apply button right away, is it, Chris?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. And I bet most people weren't necessarily expecting that. Yeah. But as we talk today, we're going to explain why that is and what steps we think are going to be most effective when you see a job posting that appeals to you. And just as a reminder, we are here live, so we'd welcome any questions that you have. Drop those in the chat box. I think it's the one side or the other here. But we'll hit as many of those questions as we can, and excited to share some insights, Danny. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, it kicks off, I guess, as simple as posted jobs, right? They're everywhere. If you've ever searched for a job before, you definitely know that. Whether you're a sales rep and they're on places like MedReps or LinkedIn or some other verticals in industry within med device, you might see them on Indeed, Career Builder, Monster, just Google Jobs, has a spot now. And then manufacturers, medical device manufacturers, companies obviously post tons, hundreds sometimes of jobs on their websites. And then recruiting firms, of course, like us, are going to post them on their websites. So there's so many different ways, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, right, as a candidate when you're hitting the market, especially if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, right? And the idea out the gate, I think, is simple, right? A company has a need, they have a job, they post it. They get applicants, right, that are relevant to the job. They narrow it down through the interview process to the top 2, 3, and they select one. That's their new hire, and then they go about their business, right? They just do that over and over. But Chris, you and I deal with this obviously closely day in, day out. We're going to talk about today why that's not the most common process and how you can go about navigating around the black hole of that apply button.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it may come as a pretty big surprise with, like you said, as easy and straightforward as that process of posting a job, fielding applicants, and ultimately hiring someone is. You'd think that would be the most common way that people would actually land jobs is right. With the online application process. It isn't. What we've come to find over many years now is it's actually through candidate referrals. And to give a little bit of a context, maybe a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, I'll share a little bit about my kind of diverse recruiting experience. Most of my career has been as a third-party recruiter, meaning we partner with other companies to help them with their hiring needs. And in that type of role, I probably work on or manage about 10 or 12 different jobs at any given time. Starts with having a conversation with the manager, get all the relevant information, their must-haves, the nice-to-haves, all the different things that are related to the search. And then from there, what I do is I create a target list of prospects, potential candidates for the job. It's based on things like keywords on a resume, or it might be from their LinkedIn page and profile. Their location is, of course, in most cases, an applicable thing that we search for. And then what I do is I proactively reach out to that group of candidates individually to see if they may be qualified, see if they might be interested. And to be honest, it's a pretty time-consuming process in general.
Yeah.
But I also have experience working as a corporate recruiter. And I'll just say that was a wildly different experience. Instead of the 10 or 12, I'll call it manageable amount of jobs that I would work, I had a minimum of 75 different job requisitions on my plate at every single moment. Mm-hmm. And so that can be a little bit daunting. all I probably really had time to do was post that job as we're talking about, review and screen the applicants that came in, coordinate interviews, and continue that process. If a job was in good shape, I'll call it, meaning that there were candidates that were interviewing, I had such limited time that I wouldn't necessarily go back and see if even better people applied. So the reality about applying online is it's kind of a crapshoot, because you can have all the right background skills, your resume can be perfect, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get an interview, frankly. Not exactly an awesome thing to hear, but our goal today is, again, to give you the insights that are going to allow you to really learn, how can I more effectively go versus that click and pray situation that I think most of us have experienced, or the process that most of us are familiar with. So that's kind of the my experience is online applications can frankly not always be the most effective means, and it bears it out in the stats that we see.
Yeah, and I think that's can be sometimes discouraging to hear. Right? I guess one other follow-up question to that. I mean, you mentioned, having worked on both sides. If you're working for the actual company as a recruiter or HR or whatever the exact title, would you say that that's more true for a certain type of position, or for larger companies versus small, or is that just across the board?
Yes and no. I mean, I think bigger companies inherently are going to have more established infrastructure. They're going to have more eyes on their company. Their brand may be more recognized, and therefore you may see more online applicants. And what that means for any individual who's applying is you're one in a sea of candidates and applicants. Doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue the job, but the bigger the company, the bigger the brand, it probably means it's a harder path to go, especially if you're applying online and just hoping that you get that interest level. So there's not a one size fits all one answer to that question, Danny. But bigger companies often are just going to be more competitive, and it's a harder path, especially when you're going as just a kind of I hate to say, but a random online applicant.
Yeah, that's true. That makes a little sense. And I mean, we did a poll as FloodGate a few months back on just to the med device community, how many folks had actually lost over the years on a job that they were interested in to an internal referral or some semblance of that. And the results were really staggering. It seemed like anybody that had been in the industry, even a year, a couple of years, had at least one instance where they were really interested in a job and they thought that their background fit perfectly with that job, but they lost, either they didn't get an interview, or late down the line in the process, they thought everything was going great and they lost to an internal referral. And, it's tough. It can be, again, daunting and discouraging. And you and I we're close to the fire on this. We work with hiring managers every single day. Yep. And regardless of the stage the role is at, sometimes it could be all the way down at final interview, regardless of the background of the candidate, internal referrals almost always, or I'd almost say just always, at least get an interview. They get a chance to put their hat in the ring. Sometimes even if their background doesn't fit even close to what the manager might be looking for, or if they're totally outside the geography of location. It's the sad truth that, hey, us as humans, we like what we have more trust in, and you have a lot more trust inherently as a manager or as anyone in a referral from a current employee than you are someone coming through the apply button. So we're going to talk about here, it's not necessarily a bad thing to apply. The apply button is there. They post the jobs there for a reason, but you might get lost. And, it's a numbers game, the job search, right? And so we're going to look at the ways that you can increase that percentage and find a way to go after the job as a referral.
Yeah, that's the whole goal, is we want you to be that referral instead of the applicant that is just sort of applying from the outside completely with no context or relationships. And you made a couple good points. I can't tell you as well how many times I've partnered with a manager that will grant an interview to someone who isn't necessarily qualified for the job. And they may take the seat of someone who's more qualified simply because they're a referral. So we know they carry a lot of weight. And you also talked about that poll. The one thing it doesn't even account for, even with the overwhelming responses, is that not everybody knows what the outcome is. Sometimes they just know they didn't get the job. They don't know why, but it's such a common theme. So that, again, is really our goal. Help you be the referral that is more often granted the seat at an interview, which is the opening to you earning the job in the first place. You can't get the job without an interview. So that's what we want you to do. Most commonly, you're going to get an interview, or percentage will tell you you're going to land an interview if you're a referral. So that's what we want you to do. And how would you say we go about looking at a posting job, and what do you do then, Danny? What's
yeah, I mean, it begs the question, right? I understand the importance. I get it. It's kind of obvious, right? But I see a posted job, Chris. What do I do? Well, the answer is it depends, right? There's a few different iterations of types of jobs and who's posting it, and all that. So first is the simplest one, and it's not super common, but I think you see it more at smaller organizations. But if the actual hiring manager is the person that's posting the job, whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's somewhere, and you can see that job poster, then yes, go ahead, click that apply button. Reason being, because although they might be getting an influx and have a large volume, they're going to be the one that's getting your resume, getting your profile, and having the opportunity to look through it, right? And they have obviously a vested interest in hiring the right person. The second is going to be, and this is close to the fire for you and I, is going to be if it's a third-party recruiter that's posting the job. The answer here is going to be yes. Again, hit the apply button, and that's not just our bias. I'll tell you why, right? Two reasons. One, they have a vested interest. Chris, myself, our recruiting team here, any other recruiter out there has a vested interest if your background and skills are applicable to the role in getting you in front of that hiring manager. Because let's face it, they get paid when the right candidate gets hired, right? They have a direct line to that hiring manager. The second reason being, again, it's a numbers game. The odds that this exact role is the right role that you're going to end up getting aren't 100%, right? And so any opportunity you have to build a relationship with a recruiting partner, the better, right? Because ultimately, in the long scope of your job search now and in the future, you're going to have more access to more jobs, be reached out, and bump those numbers up. But there's a third instance that Chris is going to go into that you might not want to hit the apply button.
Yeah, and that's where we start to go the slightly different route. But again, the goal is get yourself in front of the right decision maker and or make meaningful partnerships. And in both of those instances you mentioned, that's what can happen. Where we go a little bit off maybe the expected is if a generic company posting by the company, not by a person, it's going to be in your best interest not to actually apply out of the gate. And it's because you don't want to unintentionally put yourself on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. What we do recommend is LinkedIn. Our best friend as recruiters, frankly. You can go there as job seekers and you can do keyword searches. And so what we recommend is trying to find and identify employees at that company, the company you're interested in applying with, that can ultimately be a referral for you. Make that pathway for you to be the referred candidate through them. And as you mentioned, Danny, the best place to start, kind of away from referrals, but go directly to the source. If you can identify who is the hiring manager, try and send them a message and reach out and essentially apply, but directly to the person instead of through the application system. They might be listed, if we're talking about a sales rep role, they might be listed as a regional sales manager in the same city that the job is posted, or maybe since they'll cover a region overseeing reps, maybe it's going to be the next major metro market over. So that's a great place to start. Who is the hiring manager? But from there, you can also get referrals through a lot of different ways or become a referral through different sources. Yeah. It might be a peer level person, like a rep level individual that you can reach out to on LinkedIn. It could be a manager, not the hiring manager, but a similar manager level person up the food chain to directors. It might be somebody in a different department like marketing or clinical affairs. Since everybody or anyone other than human resources could be the pathway that you become a referred candidate, we recommend spending some time, and it is time consuming. Anything that's worthwhile in life doing is worth spending some time on, and it does take some time. But that you spend time networking to create a pathway where somebody would accept your connection request, get your resume, and recommend you on for the job.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I was thinking as you were talking through that. I'm like, Chris, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, it is a lot of work, and that's why most people don't do it, And so we're looking.
The easy apply button isn't always an easy solution. Yeah. And so this, just like most things in life, takes a little bit of effort, but if done properly, it's going to really improve your chances to land an interview.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to set you apart from everybody else that's just hitting that apply button. And so strategically, here's what we're looking at. We'll break it down for you. The first thing you want to do, obviously, you're find a job wherever it is, on LinkedIn, on MedReps, on Indeed, wherever. And you say, hey, this fits up with my background. This is something I'm interested in. I like the mission and vision of the company. I want to go after this one. So from there, you're going to create a target list of influencers at the company. Like Chris was saying, that's obviously going to include who you probably think is the hiring manager, as well as anybody else in that company that you can find, maybe with, and this is where I'd like to get your take, Chris, maybe with somebody who has a similar background to yourself. Do you think, or maybe you share something in college common, you went to college with it or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, commonality is a great thing. People are often willing to engage with or interact with people that might have a similar background, have questions that are relevant. You know, someone who has experiences that maybe they're are often willing to lend you a little bit of time because they almost see a little bit of themselves in this person, especially if it's breaking into a company like this. So that's always a good idea. Find some common ground and connect with people, because this at its root, this is a version of networking. And so you're more likely maybe to hear back from people that have a little bit of that commonality. So certainly you can include that as part of the strategy. It doesn't have to be people that you have a one-to-one connection with in some sense, but it certainly can be helpful.
Yeah, especially if I'm thinking about it, you know, at a smaller company, it's probably easy. You just hit, you know, everybody in your area. But if you're talking about a large manufacturer like a Johnson & Johnson or something like that, it's like, hey, who do I go after? There's thousands of people, right? So maybe filtering by college or previous employer will help them get a higher response rate in this number game. So I think that's,
and if you're connecting with a rep, for example, they're doing the job that you might be applying for. So there's a byproduct of getting to learn about the company, about the position, maybe even about the hiring manager. You know, it's a learning opportunity. And then after you've done those valuable things, you also may be presented as a referral, which we know is going to escalate your chances of getting that interview. Again, the goal of this whole process.
Yeah. So we've created a target list of exactly who we're going after. And then from there, we're going to go out and connect with these folks on LinkedIn. So you're going to hit the connect button. And if you're not as familiar with LinkedIn, it gives you the opportunity to add a note to that connection request that'll pop up when you're actually connecting with the person. So we're going to utilize that. Now, you can't be too long-winded because it only gives you a certain amount of characters, but we're going to try to include a few different things in there. One, why you're reaching out, right? What job you're interested in. Two, why you think your background is a fit for both the company and for this specific role, right? What maybe even in there as well, what about that role excites you? Are you just randomly applying, or is there a reason that this company or this role excites you? And then finally, the most important piece is a call to action. So if it's the hiring manager, you're obviously going to be asking for an interview, whether that's virtual, phone, in person. But then if it's another member of the organization, you just want to get them on the phone, right? Get that phone call, build that relationship. Like you were saying, Chris, learn more about the opportunity to get a little bit more ammunition for when you are interviewing, to how to tailor, your experience to it, but then also to build that relationship and ask to pursue it as an internal referral. And I think, Chris, using what I call the H word, help, especially if you're going up the ladder, if you're a sales rep and you're reaching out to a VP or a regional manager, they love helping people, right? They see people below them like it was them. And so I think people will be surprised at how effective this strategy is and how quickly it can make an impact on their search.
Well, and get back to it, there's a vested interest for those people in many organizations. They're going to get paid if this person that they referred ends up landing the job. So it's an extra layer of motivation for them to be willing to field your outreach. And again, it's not foolproof. You can only control what you can control, which is your effort and your diligence in your pursuit. You can't necessarily guarantee that they're going to respond. So the final piece that we'll say here is, we know that getting in as a referral is going to increase your chances. Again, that's the whole goal. But if you simply can't find people that are these influencers that we're seeking, or if you simply don't hear back, posted jobs have a shelf life. So maybe your time frame is 48 hours. Maybe you push it to 72. If you don't hear back within that relatively short window of taking these diligent efforts, then go ahead and apply. It's not as if it's the worst thing in the world to apply. People land jobs all the time by applying, but the likelihood is greater when you're a referral. So that's why we want you to take these steps to become that, increase your chance at landing the interview. Yeah. So that's really the whole goal, is give you these tools to say, I'm not just going to do the easy apply, click and hope. Take some steps in your control to be able to escalate those chances. And that's hopefully something that everybody has the ability to do today.
Yeah, awesome. I'll recap it here, but just one more reminder to anybody who's tuned in the last couple of minutes. Over on, I believe, the right side, any questions, we're going to get to those here in the next 60 seconds. So I see some, but drop some more questions and we'll be happy to address as many as we can here over the next couple of minutes. But to recap what we talked about, Chris, right? we've kicked up our job search, or maybe we were even kind of passively looking, right? But we see an opportunity that we really like and that we really think our background fits for. We got to figure out if it's one or three buckets. Is it the decision maker posting it? Is it a third-party recruiter posting it? Or more than likely, is it the internal HR person that's posting it? If it is, then we're going to create a target list, right, of who we're going to go after at that company, connect with them individually to try to pursue it as an internal referral, right? Is that pretty?
Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Instead of just hitting that quick, easy button, you do a little bit more legwork, but that's exactly the idea behind this here.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it gives some hope. I mean, there might be some people watching out there now or in the future that it's like, hey, I've just been hammering and applying and I'm not seeing anything. This gives them sort of action steps to take and go out and feel like they're moving down the line, because they are chipping away. So we've got some questions over here. I think we've got time for a few.
Sure.
On the mouse here. So the first one we'll pull up from Morgan. I think this is a relevant one to what we're talking about. So maybe I'll add a little bit to it because I'm reading between the lines. Maybe I live in Washington, D.C., right? And I've been applying, haven't been seeing any success there. Maybe I've had a few interviews, but I'm young, I'm hungry, I'm open to relocation. Should I maybe try and open up my search to outside where I live if I'm not seeing results in my backyard?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I can't answer for people whether they want to move, but if you're in that open-ended state of I'm looking for opportunity to earn and learn and showcase what I am and grow within a company, looking outside of it can certainly be applicable. Now, the reality is it's maybe not as easy to get a job and an interview and navigate a process when you're not local. But absolutely, the more potential seeds that you can plant that could be valuable, the better. And these same rules apply regardless of whether you're looking for a job right in your backyard or completely on the other side of the country. So the good news is these are steps that can be taken regardless of the logistics of what you're looking for.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that, we do a ton of commercial roles, but even thinking at, in an engineering role or an R&D role or an operations role, a lot of those it's changing day in, day out if that you're able to do them virtually, but a lot of them, they want you at the HQ. So if you are open to it, maybe opening it up outside there, you're going to have just more volume of opportunity. So I think that's great. We got a question here from Mason. What are some ways to separate yourself to hiring managers or recruiters, right? If you're directly connecting with them, directly targeting them when you're searching for a referral. So what's a way I can stand out from the bunch, maybe in that message that I'm sending to them?
Yeah, I think, Danny, your high level overview of the things like what should you include? Why are you reaching out? Make it easy. I like to think of an open position as a quote unquote problem for the hiring manager or the hiring team. And I think the most effective candidates are able to position themselves that they're the solution for this. And so right from that very first outreach, when you're trying to create this connection, Danny, you mentioned a couple things, not just maybe they'll connect with me, but if you put a very succinct but targeted message to someone with why you're reaching out, why the position appeals, why you can impact, and hopefully asking for that call to action, you're going to put yourself where they can easily see it and go, they're in the location, they've got the right background, they're passionate about the space because something they shared in the message. I would absolutely love to chat with them. So those are the types of things, is put yourself there as a, why can I be the solution? And if you're able to succinctly do that, the goal is get yourself on the phone or an engagement with someone within the company that is going to carry enough weight to be an internal referral. And again, you don't need to be best friends with that person.
Yeah.
They just need to be willing to recommend you on by having a resume. So there is not necessarily a right or wrong, but you really want to just get a advocate for you that is going to be willing to take your resume digitally or literally in person and deliver it to the actual hiring manager. And if you can accomplish that, that's a bit of a differentiator in and of itself, rather than just you go to an unmonitored applicant tracking system inbox, somebody that applied. Big difference between how you land in front of the manager, or if you do in fact land in front of the manager, it's often sort of legwork.
Yeah, and I think that, what we were talking about earlier, just asking for that help is sort of I think if it were me and I hadn't been doing this and known this, I would think, well, they're not going to help me. They have no, but I think it's easier than you think if you just take that action and ask for the help. More people are willing to help. So great question, Mason. Patrick, what should I do? This is a really good one. What should I do when I don't necessarily have all the job requirements or years of experience that they're asking for in the job, but, and I'll add this at the end there, but he's interested and he thinks he could be a good fit? What's the best way to pursue one of those?
Yeah, I mean, again, the same exact idea applies here. If you are applying on the outside through an online application and you don't actually meet the requirements, you probably shouldn't hold your breath that you're going to get an interview for it. Mm-hmm. But I can't even tell you in the 20 years of recruiting that I've been doing how many times a manager has acknowledged that someone isn't necessarily the best fit on paper, but they're absolutely getting an interview. And it's the interview that opens the whole opportunity for you to earn the job. Can't get it if you don't get the interview. And the best way to get the interview is to go the referral route. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't probably expect to get an interview for a job that you don't meet the requirements for. And frankly, in today's current state, it takes 45 minutes, maybe 30 for short applications, probably more likely closer to an hour. If you're spending that much time applying for something that you don't meet the requirements for, you're going to have a pretty hard pathway in today's ultra competitive world. And even more real current state, lots of layoffs, meaning a lot of really good, talented, qualified people are now on the market that they weren't expecting to be. So you shouldn't not apply necessarily, but your best chance is going to be to get that pathway where somebody introduces you to the manager. It carries weight as a referral, and then you have that interview. I've seen people overcome and earn jobs when they get the interview, but if you're just applying on the outside without the relevant experience, you're probably not even going to get put into the funnel of interviewing prospects.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, obviously, it goes without saying there's some roles where there's a few sets of minimum requirements. And even if you were best friends and grew up with the hiring manager, if it's a large company and they require a 4-year degree, or if there's there's certain things that can't be overcome. But if it is a small thing, like you're 1 year off on the year of experience, or something like that, you might not make it through that interview funnel, but if you pursue it externally, you're gonna
and getting a referral or a recommendation from someone isn't a guarantee, but it certainly is going to heighten your chances. So if you're going to be on the short side of having the requirements met, you're still going to have a better chance of this materializing to an interview by going a referral. So it's still always going to be the best possible chance is to go this route, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, Chris. Well, I think we're buttoned up. There's a couple more questions that we can address. They're on a few things that we already have gone over. So rather than going back and forth here too much longer, I think that'll round out. Any last comments? I mean, this was super fun. Hopefully, and I did see a request down there to post this afterwards. This will be posted, so you can go back, watch through it, take some notes. Anybody that tuned in late, it'll all be posted on the FloodGate page. But this was fun, Chris. I'm looking forward to the next one. And
absolutely. And go to our website. We'll not only have this posted via our LinkedIn page for FloodGate. FloodGateMedical.com also shares a lot of really great insights for job seekers, really great information in general. So you can always reach out to us live, and we're happy to be here sharing insights, helping people on their path. So really been a pleasure again, Danny, and I'll look forward to the next session.
Yeah, thanks for everyone tuning in for the Improving Live #2, and we will see you. We'll see you next time.